Haidong! In this video, we are going to talk about the double thrust in Yedo 9. Just to make sure we are on the same page, right? So near the beginning of Yedo 9, right? So you do the block, block, gonna grab, you step forward with that thrust, and then you step forward again with the thrust allegedly behind you. So from the side, in case that wasn't as clear, right? So again, you're here, you do the 1, 2, grab, overhead thrust, turn, thrust again. And just in case, you would do a spin through with a crosscut after that. Just as a refresher to what we're talking about. Now, one thing you might want to consider is also what is this thing doing before we go in for that thrust, right? So it's a little bit weird, right? So this is really the first time that we're blocking just with the left hand, right? So we did strike with just the left hand in Sangsu 7, right? We come around and do that nice big clear. But this is really the first time we are actively doing a block like this. So what is that doing, right? So one of them might just be, so the boring kind of explanation might be like, oh, I am blocking 2 cuts. Okay, like why are we doing that one-handed then, right? So why not just, 45, 45, or even if you do want to do this 45 kind of block, kind of like what we do at the end of Sangsu 7 again, why do we need to do this, right? So one potential idea is that your wrist is usually a very heavy, really big target actually, right? So if you ever do any sparring, whether it is against other Gumdosa, other Kendoka, other HEMA practitioners, I'm not sure if HEMA practitioners have their own name, but if you practice against those guys, your wrist is usually one of the first places that they are going to try to strike because it's closer to you. If you strike it, if I lose my hand, I won't be able to strike you. So this might be one of those reasons, right? So like I might realize you're going for my wrist, I might either cover my wrist, right? That might be what's happening, right? So cover, and maybe even like deflect if I need to. But for the purposes of this video, my general assumption is that yes, we're covering the hand, and so this also might be a flourish, right? So you may not know where I'm going, and then I use this to actually deflect an incoming like cut or thrust or something like that, and then I'm going to go in for that thrust. So what's nice about this is, so first of all, if you do it this way, again, your wrist is not going to be injured, but also even if you miss this block as they're coming in with either a diagonal, with a thrust, a crosscut, or something like that, even if you miss and it still hits one of these areas, you're still good. But that said, you want to make sure you're catching it with a guard. So what I'm thinking is they're going to come in with that diagonal, you're going to catch, right? So actually this is going to be one of the first major times you're going to be really using that guard to actually guide your thrust, right? So if you catch it, so 1, 2, catch, and then as you grab, making sure again sword's still there, you can just use this to glide right into the person's throat, right? Because their sword will be here, it's just going to drive up along the guard while I happily stab them in the face, in the throat, whatever suits my fancy. Once again, let's take a look at the more boring explanation, right? The one that probably isn't the intended one, but something you can still teach, right? So bang, bang, I might catch it, I may not, right? Depending on whatever you want to go with. I might stab someone in the throat, and I stab another person through the throat, right? So maybe, again, this is not the one that I teach, but maybe, right, so you finish this person off, you know someone's coming up behind you, and you're just like, bang, stab them in the throat, and then you get out of range with your clear. So you could do that, right? But that assumes so many things that are so dangerous, right? So that's assuming, first of all, you stab them in the throat, and also someone is close enough for this close range stab, right? I mean, take a look at the difference between my back foot, I'll slide back a little bit, my back foot and that thrust. It's about the same, right? So if they're close enough to be able to step on my heel, that's not good, right? Because that means if I'm still stabbing this way, they're so close, they could have probably cut me at some point before that. So yes, you could teach it this way. It's like, oh, you're going to stab someone in the face, you're going to stab someone else in the face, and you're going to spin through. You could do that. but there are going to be other options that are better than that. So let's take a look at version 2. The next one shares a concept that is actually within the whole form. That's the idea of using, again, a thrust or something like it as a warding mechanism, right? So I'm not actually thrusting someone through the throat. It's kind of like, yo, I know you're there. Stop. And then you're going to go spin through with a crosscut. So again, that's not as exciting, right? Because I just stabbed someone through the throat, and I'm like, yo, no, stay. And you're going to go back up and do clear, always keeping in mind where the person is. So I say that happens in the form, right? So where is another point it happens? We do occasionally use this as a warding mechanism, right? So if you remember in the end of 9, right, so you do your uppercut, thrust. So again, this could actually be, penetrating someone's throat. But most likely you're not going to be doing a spin, ending with a stab, if you're actually able to land the stab, because that means we're probably warding them off, right? So it's like, all right, you back off, stay, take care of your friend, and then you're going to try to finish them off later. So that is an idea that is in Yedo 9, again, not canonically, but at least the way that I've been interpreting it, as well as things I'm going to eventually teach in the future. So it is actually something that happens in the form. So using this double thrust as, again, you stay away, isn't too unheard of, right? So here, I see you, right? You stay there, you're going to spin through that crosscut. So again, that is something you could interpret as the form, but there's going to be one more that I like a lot more. So we're going to go to version number 3. A quick note, make sure you do not do this combination against a partner in sparring, or at least unless if your partner really, really knows what's going on, right? So even if you're wearing the appropriate gear, this can still be really, really damaging. So even if you're wearing a good gorget, right? So a guard made specifically for throats, it may not be enough, right? So again, be very, very careful. I'm going to practice it against a bob target, and you might be able to see why it's not a good idea, unless if you're willing to destroy the person, which you don't. So that's why, again, as a martial art, that's why this technique exists. But again, don't do this in sparring. You've been warned. I'm going to show you this combination at a few different angles, but the first one, just because I have been doing it this way, might give you an idea, right? So again, once more, don't do this against someone. Just don't. Just know that this is an application for a form that's really dangerous. So, right? So the idea, right? So someone either came with that thrust or that cut, that thrust, whatever might be happening. I block it, right? So this part is not going to be a surprise, right? So I block it, I step in, thrust into the throat, right? So that itself is not the surprising bit, right? You might actually imagine that's, okay, you told me I'm going to, he's much taller. All right, you said we're going to stab someone in the face. That's what I expected, right? So you're here, 1, 2, stepping in. So again, if the sword's here, you actually use that to guide into their throat. Stab, right? So from here, you're actually going to be stepping past the partner, maintaining pressure on the throat, and you're actually going to use that to push through the throat. So from here, as you step through, you're going to push through. Make sense? So again, you can, just because he's really tall, it looks a little bit weird. So you can imagine why this is particularly dangerous if you're using it against an actual person. Because not only do you make puncture, right, so you actually catch them in the throat, but as you step through, you're going to drive the blade through the person's body. Not pretty, right? But that's the idea, right? So you're 1, 2, you're going to step into the throat, you're going to step past him, right? So even if he did have contact, right? So I know I don't have a partner for this one to actually show you what the sword's doing. Even with that sword there, you might be thinking like, oh, you're stepping towards their sword. That's a bad idea. The sword's on this side, right? So as I step through, I'm actually going to go towards their arm, and as I come in, push through. You can also think of it almost like a slitting motion as well. But then from here, what's going on, right? So if you're either embedded in the throat or you're through it, coming through, blowout, right? So as you spin through, you're making sure, first of all, you're getting distance away from that newly severed person, and also you're getting your sword out, you're getting away from them, and those are both good things, right? So let's try this from a slightly different angle so you can maybe see some more nuances. So again, block, catch. So you can either aim for the actual throat, right, so the V, or right into the side of the neck. As you step through, so again, you want to stay nice and close, almost linear stepping. Step through, push through, and then 1, 2, clear. And also you can kind of check how he's doing, right? So at the end of this part, you do a spin check. He's probably not going to be happy, right? So you're going to go check again, and you're going to come back into a defense to fight his friend. So again, one more time, like from this angle. 1, 2, so step thrust, step through, push through, 1, 2, clear, check. I guess if you want to, you could get the rib as well. That seems to be adding injury to injury. That seems a little bit excessive, so you could, up to you. And in the event, watching it straight on helps. So one last time, right? So you're here, 1, 2, stab to the throat, step through, 1, 2, clear, don't hit my wall, don't hit Bob, check. And then you can come back through this way. So once again, be careful with this particular combination, right? So imagine, you can probably imagine what the drill is going to be. The drill is try the 3 variations, again for yourself, and just conceptually see which one makes the most sense, right? So remember, one of them is I stab someone in front, I stab someone behind, and then I spin. Again, it doesn't really seem likely, but again, you could try that. One is I stab, I check. So again, this combination does, or this concept happens in the form, so that's not unrealistic. And then try the double thrust to the same person. But I would recommend trying it against a target, trying against a tower target, a bob, whatever you might have around you, and give it a go, right? Kind of try it for yourself, like how the geometry is going to work, and all that fun stuff. So as usual, so this time, stay safe, right? Stay safe, stay humble, and keep training. Haidong!